So I like to have a good 10 breaths. So you can just drop in and feel at ease. Brings me great honor to have the one and only Waylon here on the Yoga Revealed podcast to share his journey of not only yoga but conscious activism.
All right.
And I'm super stoked to be right here in Boulder at your beautiful office, right in the heart of downtown, and it's an absolutely gorgeous day.
It is stunning out there. Yeah, it's a huge honor, but even more a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
The only downside is that I feel like you're not here forever. It would be great to have you here. So your smile is refreshing.
Definitely. I mean, I love Boulder. It's an absolutely refreshing place for me to be every time that I come here because fresh air. You know, you don't get that much fresh air when you're over in Venice, but we do have the beach, so it keeps me there.
You have some water. We have the creek. We don't have a lot of water.
It's still absolutely gorgeous, and I spent this weekend over at Hanuman Festival. Got to see you over at the farmers market, and really get a feel and a vibe for this communal just environment and how everyone's so interconnected. And it really just brings me to how interconnected you are with your community and how you have become this influential leader. I would call you a thought leader because you're presenting all these amazing thoughts through your publication of Elephant Journal. With Yoga Revealed, we like to start in how your path was first revealed to you.
Well, I grew up here in Boulder. My childhood home was like 1 minute bike ride that direction, 5 minute walk. And my parents were, Dad was from New York, Mom was from LA. They met in the middle, and they were early kind of hippie students of this guy, Trungpa Rinpoche, this Buddhist teacher.
Yeah.
And the whole Buddhist kind of MO is basically how can you be a benefit to others? And others includes the planet and animals and yourself, quite importantly. So it's not some sort of martyrdom thing. And the higher path, even higher than that path, is how can you be a benefit to others, the planet, animals, yourself, with joy, with a sense of humor and appreciation. And I feel like you're a good example of that. So I think, that's sort of what I was raised to. Like some people are raised to want to be a great musician or a great baseball player or a great business person or a great adventurer, and all those are fine pursuits. I was sort of raised to, I was trained in meditation and all these things, and I needed it because I was a, typically kind of crazy kid. And, so Elephant is hopefully an expression of just trying to create that community and help people, because, people look happy, hopefully, around the world, but there's a lot of suffering, whether it's apparent or not, in everyday life. And there's also a lot of wonderfulness about life. So if we can point out how to enjoy life in a genuine way and how to, work with suffering in a compassionate way.
That's the truth, man. Then we live a life that's of fulfillment.
Right, exactly.
Because the more that we can give and share with others, the more that we actually see that value full circle.
Right, yeah. If you just have, from your life, you're always running around, traveling, spreading, you're teaching yoga and spreading joy. And if you just have your good gated community set up, it's not actually that fun.
Yeah.
You might have your own basketball court, but no one to play with.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Totally true. So I wanted to really dig deep into how Elephant Journal came to be. What were your thought processes, or what actually brought you to saying, I'm going to create this publication that's not only going to be an online portal for people to find realization and for people to find more resources to help them in their spiritual path, but also to highlight some of the most beneficial, what I would call just events. And you guys do a lot of coverage of events, a lot of coverage of, what's happening in the world. And so I think that we would like to hear more about how that came to be.
Well, the basic idea of Elephant is to be an independent, i.e. our goal is not to sell out to the man eventually, unlike a lot of businesses, are an independent voice for a mindful, sane, compassionate take on anything that's going on in the world or in us. So whether it's relationships or a tragedy like just happened in Orlando, hopefully we can be a voice not of blame, not of bigotry, not of hate, not of further kind of aggression, but a voice of a reference point for love, I guess, on some level. I think all of us, whatever we wind up doing, if it's that notion right livelihood, where we're doing something we love and it's a benefit, it just comes from our kind of who we are. And I think, I grew up in this Buddhist family. I was a bit of an environmentalist as I grew up, and I have a love for politics and the public service, and then I love to write, and I studied journalism. So you kind of put all that together and you kind of get something like Elephant. So, and I'm sure it's the same in your life, and anyone who's listening, you look at the ingredients of your life and you mix them up and you say, how can I do something that I love based on that stuff that's a benefit, and you got right livelihood.
Truth, definitely.
Yeah, doesn't mean it's easy. It could mean you're like, gosh.
So tell me, when did Elephant Journal actually come to be?
Yeah, so we've been around for almost 14 years now, which makes me feel kind of old. A lot of my staff people were in first grade or something when I started. Yeah, but so I partnered with this fellow Travis who was trying to start a local or regional yoga publication called Yoga in the Rockies. And he wasn't a journalist, and he was a good businessman, a good person. His wife was a student and teacher at Richard Freeman's yoga workshop.
Oh, okay.
Mary Taylor.
Cool.
But he was struggling to create a magazine because it wasn't something he particularly knew how to do. And I didn't really know how to do it, but I'd studied journalism, and I'd worked for Shambhala Mountain Center in program development and marketing and PR. So I kind of had a good mentor there in business. And I just started selling ads and getting a designer and getting articles and editing them, and it was fun. And I was really, I don't know if I was good at it, but I really enjoyed it, and I was kind of good at it. And I certainly learned a lot, but over the course of the next couple issues. But I knew nothing about distribution. I knew nothing about half the business. But so we had this print magazine. Travis dropped out very early on. I would say he was smarter than me and realized that it was going to be a tough road.
The longevity is the key.
Yeah, but financially it was, probably 3 years before I paid myself a living wage, and I didn't have savings. I spent my $13,000 of life savings on starting it.
I feel
the first issue.
Yoga revealed, baby. Yoga revealed. All
revealed
my love. Just here.
And but it was fun. There was some level of it felt good, and creating community, and people appreciated it and connected, and if the cost of that is eating day-old muffins and sleeping on people's couches for a while, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And so it went national eventually as a print magazine. I renamed it Elephant, partially for many reasons, which I could go into, but basically so that it could be about anything, not just yoga in the Rockies, but it could be about sort of the whole world from a yogic or Buddhist or mindful point of view. And I didn't want people to have to be yogis to connect with this content.
That's a beautiful way of presenting it, because I feel that the beauty of elephants is that they're wise and they're very versatile, and to think of an elephant, that brings me to like this idea of a wisdom keeper that travels and that can be anywhere at any time. And I think that Elephant Journal is a beautiful name for that. So
well, thank you.
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, elephants, like, who doesn't love an elephant? So they're matriarchal, they're vegan, which is crazy. They're so big. They mourn their dead. They're obviously symbolic of man's and woman's relationship to nature, or our, in many cases, negative relationship to nature, because elephants are very vulnerable. They need a lot of room to, as you were saying, to move around, and they can be poached, obviously, quite easily. And, you know, Ganesh in the yoga tradition, and the elephant sacred in the Buddhist tradition, and even politically, you know, it's the symbol of the Republican Party. So I've always joked that we're reclaiming the elephant from the GOP.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. But so it went national as a magazine. It was pretty fun and relatively successful. Our office, ironically, is actually just next door, 20 feet away, like 8, 9, 10 years ago. And
so much has happened in this little vortex right here.
yeah. Yeah. Mostly cafes, though. I usually just work out on my laptop in a cafe. And like in 2002, when we started, I went to go work in Vic's Cafe here in Boulder, and no one took their laptops to a cafe, and they had the first Wi-Fi in Boulder. And my partner Travis was like, "What? You're doing your work in a cafe? Like, that's crazy." So
Hey,
just to
you're a
date
thought
myself.
leader, man. You're a thought leader, ahead of the curve.
Yeah, well, it's very antisocial work. You know, you're online all the time. Social media, ironically, is incredibly isolating and antisocial in a way. So to remain human and connected, it's often helpful for me to not be in a little
enclosed
box.
space. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So then we were a magazine. Then as we started getting big, the environmental costs started getting worse. We're on great eco paper, but magazines get shipped all over the country, and then most of them get thrown away or recycled. But recycling is super energy intensive for magazines. You have to take the inks out. So it didn't feel eco-responsible. So I jumped online and gave up the office and lost my staff, and house went into foreclosure, and I just kind of rebuilt the whole thing.
Wow, from the ground up. You just like immediately knew that the best way to go was paperless.
Yeah, I mean, it took me a while to make that leap. You know, it was sort of like falling on a sword. You know, I was briefly having some success in paying my mortgage, you know. It's kind of nice. But yeah, at a certain point it became obvious. I just, you know, we can put up a blog right now, you know, we can put up a video of you or something right now. Someone in Mongolia with Wi-Fi can connect and watch it right now for free. I mean, it's kind of magical. It's like Harry Potter, basically, as opposed to this sort of static print thing, which we all love, but yeah, it's got a serious environmental cost.
Definitely. So Elephant Journal as a whole, I mean, how many staff members do you guys have now?
I think we have like in the mid-20s.
Cool.
Yeah.
And everyone works remotely and just kind of does their own thing?
Yeah, most of our staff, as you can tell, doesn't live in Boulder, and even the people in Boulder are not required to be at the office 100% of the time.
That's beautiful.
So, you know, typically there's like 5 people or something in the office, and the rest of them all live all over the country because we post in every time zone. So all night, you know, we have 2 Australians, I think, and 1 Slovenian, and 1 lady who's been in Africa for a couple of years, and 2 United Kingdomers, and it's kind of all over. And then we have a couple Canadians, and you know, it's just we're dispersed. And there's a couple staff members I've worked with for almost 4 years who I've never met.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
But that's honestly beautiful that you have a secular staff. You have people from all around the world who are putting in their value, putting in their word, and creating this amazing publication that is really something that I feel caters to the whole world. And that's a huge benefit.
Well, you know, we Americans have such a sort of worldview that is dependent on America. So it's a great reminder that half our staff is like, well, you know, things are
different over here.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
It's good to know. So in the current state of time, I mean, we just finished, I guess people went in and voted for our good old primary, right? And, you know, it's either Bernie or Hillary, and I mean, it looks like just Trump.
Yeah.
And so we live in a very, what I would call like a fragile state in time. I want to hear your opinion on how important it is for the conscious community to be informed about the political state of the world.
Well, what do you think?
I'm asking the questions.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
I mean, Sean Corn, our friend, is a great example of that. It's like, even if you're going to vote for Trump, you know, this is audio, so I'm making a weird expression right now. Even if you're going to vote for Trump, it's important to take part in the political process. So even if you're going to vote for Joel Stein or whomever, that's great. Be active and hopefully be informed and vote. You know, Elephant doesn't tell people how to vote, although we do. We do make endorsements, but our values are what guide us. So, you know, we're going to vote for the candidate who will best fight, in quotes, for peace, for equality, for environmental and social justice. And even if that candidate is far from perfect, if they're far better in those respects, we'll support them. But, you know, even if someone's going to vote for Trump, you know, it's important that they just participate. And I think Elephant, you know, I got in a huge argument with a editor this weekend. Someone wrote an article saying, hey, Hillary's clinched it, even though she's not perfect, it's time that we get behind her and stop this Trump thing. And the editor was a huge Bernie fan.
Yeah.
And I'm a Bernie fan, and I donated to Bernie, but I also, like Bernie himself has said, am good at arithmetic and can see the writing on the wall. And it may not be clinched, but it's basically clinched. And so she wasn't a big fan of this article, and she basically rejected it. And I was not happy with that, because if you know, someone wants to write a pro-Trump article, I'll print it. The web, unlike magazines, is this magical thing where comments and the community can play half the role in any given article. So if I put up to use a non-political example, if I put up a video about meditation instruction, but I get something wrong, or I say something offensive, or I'm clumsy about something, I'll hear about it in the comments. And that, as long as those comments are constructive, that's really helpful to readers, because they can see that, well, this article may be pro-Trump, and we would only publish it if it's thoughtful, and if it's somewhat reasonable, and if it's got some sources.
Yeah, if it's informed.
Yeah, but then the comments can be like, hey, you know, I don't think Trump is going to be great for America because of X, Y, Z, you know. So we're not here to tell people how to think. We are here to kind of mandate that discussion is that Americans particularly need to remember how to agreeably disagree. That someone on the other side isn't evil necessarily, you know.
That's so the truth, because I feel that so often we become separated by our beliefs, and when we believe something that literally takes us apart from understanding how to relate to one another, then it literally puts us apart and brings forth what I would call just like disorder. And right now I feel that in our current state of time, like, this is the most important time for us to be in order and to be more united through our social justice, through our environmental justice, and through the livelihood of us as a human race. Because when it comes down to it, we're here to thrive on this earth with all the organisms that are here upon this earth. And with that being said, we need someone who's going to stand up for our livelihood as a country, but also our livelihood as a human race.
Yeah, well said. I mean, right now, you know, there's all these articles about the ocean reefs are all bleaching and dying, and we may be like, who cares? You know, I'm more focused on what I'm going to have for lunch, or who I'm dating, or how my job is going, or how can I pay my rent, or, you know, my daily life. But the fact is, humans' actions are killing the founding organisms of the ocean that all the fish feed upon, and half of humanity feeds upon those fish. And at a certain point, it's like you realize you're in an ecosystem, and what we do, whether to a fellow human being, or in a good or bad way, or to nature, which is part of us, will come back to us.
Yeah, and I think that that's the fundamental understanding that whoever our presidential candidate is or whoever our next president is needs to know is that we are literally nature. Our essence is natural.
Right.
Therefore, to coexist in this ecosystem, we must be mindful of that. And I feel that with that being said, it's evident that Bernie, I feel, was my first choice totally for the presidential election. But we live in a very interesting time where I don't know if it's the lack of education or the limited beliefs, but it's just very interesting to see, just from my perspective, I would say that people even have a viewpoint that someone who stands for such extreme approaches can even be put in the same candidate race. It's just very interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, I would be pretty positive about that. I mean, I lived in Vermont when Bernie was our mayor in Burlington and then congressman, and again, I'm saying this as a fan, he's a nutty, he's pretty much too old, safety-wise, to elect him as a president, one of the most taxing jobs ever. It's pretty intense. He had no financial backing, which is part of the reason we all loved him. He was the only candidate clearly walking his talk against Citizens United. And he came with this close to, and he's not even a Democrat, really, he's an independent.
Yeah.
He came this close to taking over the Democratic Party. And he's meeting with Hillary on, I think, Thursday. And he's going to say, before I release my delegates and before I, go all in and support you, I need to know that, we're going to start rolling back all the tuition hikes and we're going to start doing all the different things that he's been fighting for. Mm-hmm. I would say the fact that he or Obama or Howard Dean before him have been able to, Obama was an underdog, to have these successful campaigns, or very successful to different degrees, based on $25 donations on the internet is a wonderful, inspiring example.
But I feel that is what our government should be based on,
Sure.
is power to the people,
Yeah.
is really empowering people to be able to support those who are truly invested in change.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's starting to happen, which, a lot of us are disappointed about Bernie. He is the candidate of a generation. I don't think we're going to see another one that kind of clear about his principles, his or her principles. But he came really, what we accomplished was, stunning to me at least.
Yeah.
And on the other side, you have this sort of reactionary, bigoted, keep Muslims out, women or whatever.
Yeah. Against gays
Trump.
And just,
kind of against everyone, unless you're an obsequious, white, hopefully hot female or something.
Hopefully
the way
hot.
Trump treats people is that they're things, not people, really.
Yeah.
And there are either things supporting him or not. So, on some level, I think it's kind of the dying gasp of this. A lot of good people are freaked out about changes. They're losing their jobs, the Walmartization and the Amazonization of, everything's being made in China, or environmental protections and jobs are just going away. And as Obama said recently, a lot of them are coming back. Technology is replacing a lot of people.
Yeah.
Whether it's at the checkout aisle in Home Depot or your library,
Yeah.
or in an auto manufacturing plant where 90% of the jobs are done by robots now.
Wow.
It's like Terminator is becoming real.
It's technology. The beauty of it is that we can share so much information, but I guess the downfall of it is that it makes people become more creative because they have to find new ways to value and to earn value.
And you could be 50 and you could have 3 kids in college and you could have to go back to school and learn a whole new job. It's very scary for people. And people, including yourself and myself, really want some stability. And the fact is, this world is moving fast, and unless you're pretty lucky, you're not going to have a lot of stability.
Yeah, the only way to survive is to continue to evolve.
Yeah, that right there. So I think hopefully Elephant is in some small way trying to guide people how to use this technology in a mindful, helpful way.
Definitely. So with that being said, I wanted to kind of, or actually, we'll just, Dean, cut, you can actually turn off the camera, because it'll just, yeah, the battery will go out, and if you pull the little button on the side down, yeah, perfect. Now it'll be really quiet.
Cool.
Yeah, I just wanted a preview for it.
Cool.
Thanks, Dean. That's our sound editor.
Oh, cool. Thank you, Dean.
So, with the current state of the world, what do you feel as a communal leader, as someone who has a community of followers, as an influencer, is our role to help bring forth consciousness in our communities?
Well, it's a great, I mean, that is the question for all of us. I think, first of all, you know, from a Buddhist point of view, there aren't really leaders, particularly there's servants. And if you're serving a lot of people, then you could be a leader in a sense. But so the greatest role is to be of service, not necessarily to be like, you know, have your little photo in the yoga brochures or whatever. So, I mean, the main thing all of us can do is really walk our talk. And I think, you know, I think that's one of the things that drives me nuts about some of the yoga conferences, which I used to attend and have my little photo in the brochures for years. And there's a lot of people talking about love, and there's a lot of people doing kirtan or dancing around, or hula hooping or whatever. But 90% of us are wearing plastic yoga pants that are manufactured in China. You know, a lot of us are using plastic water bottles. That's right. Little chaos is fine. You know, so any way that we can kind of be eco and social justice responsible in our daily lives, and not do it out of a sense of like arrogance. Like, I'm vegan, but a lot of vegans can be kind of aggressive about veganism, which is ironic because veganism is about, you know,
kindness. Compassion.
Yeah, and I find if I'm at a big I get asked like 5 times a week why I'm vegan at some dinner table, and it's always awkward because then they blame you for talking about veganism. But my approach is usually just to be like, you know, I think whatever you're doing is fine. It's none of my business really, but here's why I'm doing it, and then kind of move on. Like, you can lead by example instead of kind of soapboxing people.
Yeah, stuffing it down people's throat.
Right, but at the same time, it is important to take a lot of stands in a non-arrogant way and say, how can I contribute to my community, to myself? I mean, there's a reason cancer rates have skyrocketed. The presence of toxic chemical cleaners, which I see used in a lot of yoga studios, are out of control. And, you know, with hot yoga, like, that's a huge environmental cost.
Yeah.
You know, get some solar panels up there. Like, whatever we can do as a yoga community, as whoever we're talking to really, as Sean Korn and others are so great about talking about it, like, bring it off the mat. Because it's really, there's nothing more selfish than spirituality that is using all the world's spirituality for me.
Yeah.
So if I can use it for me so I can become kinder and a better person and then give it away now, then it's more fun, like we were talking about before, you know. And then it's not this sort of like, you know, superficial spirituality. It's actually, you can feel it in people who have that kind of sadness and compassion. You know, they're thinking about the suffering in the world, they're feeling it. You know, they're thinking about Orlando, or they're thinking about whatever injustice is happening. You know, there's plenty of it. Yeah, whether it's rape or, you know, women's rights or black rights or just equal rights generally, class rights that Bernie talks about all the time, equality. There's so many issues. I mean, climate change is going to be incredibly painful over the next 80 years, causing mass migrations and droughts and, you know, what have you. So anyway, there's a lot of work for us to do, and it can be fun if we're all doing it together. So that's why I think, you know, it's important not to think of ourselves as leaders, because that's, in a way, it's like it's all put on you then. You have to work your butt off all year long to be of benefit to the world, while we all just sit back and look for something to watch on Netflix. Oh, I rewatched House of Cards. You know. You know.
Yeah, so being of service, how how do you sustain the service while at the same time fulfilling your well and making sure that you have the equity and the self, this what I would call just self-esteem to be able to give. Like what are some of the practices that you use to be able to refill yourself, to be able to be such an influential person in the services that you provide?
Well, there's two kinds of service. One is sort of arrogant and kind of is built on preconceptions. It's like I go to some quote unquote third world country and I say, oh, these people need what we have. They need, good roads, and they need good shoes, and they need Teslas, and they need, whatever. Instead of actually going there and listening and learning. So there's sort of an arrogant way to try and help people, like you need what we have. Or there's a treating people like equals and saying, how can I help? How can I be of service? And that usually is based on your own heart instead of your mind. It's built on empathy and saying, well, I feel compassion, I feel empathy, I'm inspired to try and help. How can I help? And then it becomes like a team sport instead of this kind of
one-man show.
Yeah, and the one-man show doesn't even really help people typically. There's all kinds of examples of international aid just failing and pouring billions of dollars into stuff, and it just doesn't make sense. So on a more internal or spiritual level, if it's coming from a genuine, soft, open place of listening and of feeling, then it doesn't tire you out. In Buddhism, they actually say, if you enjoy service, your energy is limitless. And I think you're a great example of that. I mean, you're a busy guy.
Yeah.
But if you get all self-important and you take yourself too seriously and you feel too isolated and full of yourself, then you're going to get tired. Because the world's weight is on my shoulders. No one appreciates me. People are treating me wrong or something. But you're not like that. You're open and you're enjoying it and you're present. And then it's like and then you take care of yourself, hopefully. You eat good food and you sleep and you do whatever you need to do. You exercise, you engage with friends and loved ones, and then you're kind of replenished continually. And the trick is they're replenished too. Instead of it's like you're coming in and being the sort of arrogant leader, which is exhausting. I don't know how Trump does it.
Well, I mean, he doesn't have much hair, so...
Yeah, right. It's burning him out.
So with that being said, I feel like a lot of what you're speaking of kind of just seeps down to our relationships and brings me to reveal your book and more about what that's all about and how we can integrate those really conscious relationships to help to fulfill us, to continue to be able to serve others.
Well, I think a lot of, there's some great quotes about it that I put in the book, actually, from others. A lot of relationships, again, are built on this sort of like, this rom-com kind of, you complete me fantasy thing. And there's a great quote that says, until you're actually kind of good with yourself, until you love yourself, you're not going to be able to meet someone fully and be open with them fully and actually fall in love.
What is that noise? Because it's picking it up.
Is that air conditioning? What is that?
Yeah, next door. Oh, really?
Oh, can you close that window?
Yeah.
Sorry, we'll get a little sweaty, but it's all, sweat's good.
Yeah, makes you strong. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, if there's any windows on that side, let's close it.
Yeah,
Cool.
so much better.
And Bess, if you want, you can sit in here as long as you're planted, not moving around. It's up to you.
You coming?
Know it.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome.
So where were we?
About relationships in your book.
Yeah, so if you can, I think in Buddhism the wedding vows are called ultimate friendship or something like that. So if it's just, like you have your best friends in your life, it's not this roller coaster of melodramatic, maybe ego-based emotions. Obviously you have tough times with best friends, you have good times, but overall there's a stability and there's an honesty, hopefully, at the base of that, and a sense of humor and affection. love is basically that, but obviously it's spiced with a little chaotic, attraction and other fun things, which are awesome, but also can make it all like
very emotional,
very intense. Yeah. So I think there's an idea that a lot of love will mean that we can get rid of our loneliness and kind of get away from part of ourself, so we never have to feel that again. And from a Buddhist point of view, it's the opposite. If you can be open and raw and appreciative and heartfelt your entire life, then you can be in love with everyone and everything and your day and yourself. And that's the notion of Maitri, which Pema Chodron talks a lot about, great Buddhist teacher Pema. Maitri is loving kindness. I mean, a lot of Buddhist teachers talk about it. It's my favorite thing to talk about. I think love starts here. And that's a tough path, because we all have battles with ourselves, whether it's how we look or how we feel or our childhood or whatever it is.
Yeah. And so, in the sense of starting love with yourself, in your book, do you go into depth as to, how the steps that we take to actually become more loving and more self-caring with ourselves, so that we can actually bring that compassion to our hearts and then be able to share it with others? Damn,
that was a good quote right there. Just cut that out, make that the video. The book is actually written from this experiential kind of poetic point of view. So it's actually a description of my love life, basically. As I was getting close to 40 years old, I'm 41 now, I was writing this, and it was a feeling of like, I need to finally figure out what I'm looking for and what kind of love could I possibly commit to. Because it's easy to fall in love and commit to that, but it's really hard to fall in love, commit to that, and then keep committing to that for 40 more years or something, which is what I would like to do if I'm going to promise to be with someone in sickness and health, and richer and poorer, and good and bad, happy and sad. I want to mean it. And so the book was sort of a quest to answer that question. How could I possibly mean something when change is fundamental to life? Like, what if my loved one wanted to go off and dance in France for 5 years, Would I be okay with that? I hope so. I want to support them in their path, but at the same time, what does that mean for us? And I just made this vow. So it's a very personal, almost poetic book. It's not really a Buddhist teachings particularly, although it's coming out of that and reflecting on those teachings. But it's also hopefully more fun to read than perhaps my next book will be, which might be a little more practical. Wow. My next book is called "Self-Help is Bad for You," and it's a bit more about how to stop trying to aggressively be this better person and just kind of let go, like the Buddha did ultimately, and be present with what's actually going on.
Yeah, I feel that's actually a huge subject in the yoga community now, is that there's so many people that are literally hard on themselves. And because they're so hard on themselves, they're not actually doing yoga. There's no sense of self-compassion. There's no sense of allowing yourself to align with what's right for your body so that you can manifest what's right for your world. I feel so often that, we live in this conscious community, and the comparison of others is what drives us to trying to become better. Whereas really we should try to become better for ourselves, for our own integrity of being able to shine the truth that's within our hearts.
I mean, that's Maitri, what you just said. That's well said. Yeah. And I think it's particularly exacerbated now by, we're all on Instagram, and a lot of yoga teachers are young and conventionally beautiful, including yourself. Good looking.
Thank you.
And
I practice every morning.
Yeah, oil, polish. But that can be really hard for people who, are comparing, that expression, comparison is the thief of joy. And that's why I really appreciate a lot of the Instagrammers, to their credit, go out of their way to say, look, I'm just as messed up and messy and human as anyone else, and I'm on this path, and maybe I look good in a bikini on a beach or whatever. I don't particularly, but
I haven't seen it yet. So,
count your blessings. So it's very, very hairy, but anyway, it's the yoga culture. I feel like I've written about it in Elephant. Is this wonderful, difficult path, but it's being kind of like a whale with all the barnacles all over it by the kind of corporate sponsors and by Instagram culture and by this sort of superficial thing. It's like, and that's not bad. It's like, how as a yoga teacher can you make money? Because making $75 a class is, if you're teaching 4 classes a week, that ain't gonna pay your rent or your, you know, or your wheatgrass shots or whatever, you know.
Your green juice.
Yeah.
Cleanse.
$500 Lululemon allotment.
Happens.
Yeah. So, you know, anyway, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I feel that kind of segues directly into what I would call our 3 nuggets of wisdom. And I feel for our listeners who are listening at home or in their cars on the way to work or literally on the way to their next yoga class, what would you say are 3 nuggets of wisdom that you can give them to help live a more true life of self-preservation and sharing of service?
Well, the first one is very difficult for Americans, particularly, but most people in modern life generally, is allow the gap. So we love to walk around and be on our phone. If we're at lunch and a friend goes to the bathroom, we get on our phone. If we wake up in bed, we get on our phone. If we're on the toilet, we're on our phone. Allow gaps. And that's where insight can manifest, like lightning strike. That's where your mind can relax. You have to take care of yourself. That's where joy can occur. You can find yourself looking at the sky or the moon or, you know. So many times I'm like downtown Boulder, which is a great community, and I'll see a friend who I haven't seen for months, and they're walking along on their phone, and they don't see me, and then I don't see them for a couple more months, and we're good friends. And there's that's happening all the time. When you're trying to fill every inch of your life with stuff, you're missing out on a lot of connection.
That's true.
And so allow gaps generally. Number 2, I would say meditate. Meditation is kind of what yoga is for. Yoga traditionally
is what yoga is for.
Yeah, I don't want to make a bold statement, but
hey,
yeah.
I'm here to make those bold statements. Yoga revealed.
You and
Meditate.
Patanjali. Yeah. So, you know, Patanjali talked about calming or stilling the waves of the mind. So fundamentally, if you can wake up without your phone, meditate for a couple minutes or longer, but you don't have to be hard on yourself, Maitri. You know, even a couple minutes of, as you just did in the beginning of this conversation, you know, just rest your attention on your breath. If you find yourself distracted, that's fine. Bring your attention back to the breath until you're kind of present with your breath, and then you can go on with your day. If you want to dedicate the merit of your day and of your meditation practice before and after, that's how we Buddhist types do it. So I think, but there's nothing Buddhist about it. Christians, everyone has some quality of trying to, you know, Sufis of trying to connect with whatever you want to call it, with Buddha nature, with God, with the present moment, with breath. Yeah, just as a little aside, like even in the Hunger Games, you saw when Katniss was about to shoot a difficult shot, she'd really breathe very deliberately. That's what we do in yoga class, hopefully. And too many yoga teachers don't really teach breath and alignment and these things anymore. They teach kind of like a cool iPod playlist. Nothing wrong with that, but you know, the breath is important.
Yeah.
But you don't need to take yourself seriously. Important doesn't mean get uptight.
Yeah.
So, and then number 3, I think if I would say intention or mission. If everything you do always, there's some idea that you're trying to do it to be a benefit to everyone and everything, including yourself, then that has a very subtle but also very powerful transformative effect on your life. And then if you're experiencing melodrama or klesha, as we would call it, difficulty every day in your life, maybe just really focus on, before you go to bed and when you first wake up, really just dedicating your day to everyone and everything, including yourself.
That's a really beautiful one.
Well, I didn't make it up, but
I mean, it's still beautiful nonetheless.
Yeah.
You reiterated it.
Yeah.
Well, this definitely fulfills us, and I wish to have perhaps one quote or one like just golden nugget that you could leave our listeners with to help them get through their path and to find more awareness of themselves and to be able to move into their communities and really become the service providers or the influencers that they wish to become.
Well, I think I can't think of the quote right now, so I'll have to create my own. For once, I won't be able to steal from other wonderful teachers. But the notion that I got it. I remember the quote, so now I don't actually have to make up anything. So there's a Buddhist quote that says, it's actually on our tote bags somewhere, but it says, if you want to be happy, which everyone wants to be, think first of others. If you want to be unhappy, think only of yourself. So it's kind of the exact opposite of what our ego thinks. If you're a jerk and aggressive to me, I want you to go away or realize how wonderful I am. That's the egotistical attitude. If you're really wonderful and kind to me, I want to cling to you and keep you close. That's the egotistical attitude. The opposite attitude is, that I can let go of that which I'm attached to, and that I can welcome in that which frightens me. And that, again, I'm doing that because of my motivation, which is to think first of others. If you're going through some aggression or something, I can be like, what's going on? You're having a rough day, or what did I do? Let's talk about it. I can take some blame here. And if you're being wonderful, I don't have to try and control and own that. I can be like, yeah, go be wonderful everywhere and support you in that, instead of belittling you or trying to isolate you.
Or trying to keep you to myself.
Right. And that applies to cars, that applies to, anything.
Yeah.
We generally are very clingy to anything good, and we almost ruin it because of that. We've all done that in love, probably. Or you get a little jealous and a little uptight and insecure, and you kind of ruin the wonderful dance that was happening.
Yeah, totally.
Anyway.
Well, I truly appreciate your knowledge and your time and the wisdom that you've shared with the Yoga Revealed podcast listeners. And it brings me great joy to have you here today. And I am so honored for you and what you live and what you stand for. And I truly appreciate you.
Well, likewise, and thank you belatedly for saving my arse at Wanderlust in Hollywood. He emceed our big event out there. And I'm sure you're more fun anyway than I would have been. So thank you so much, and thank you to your audience.
Definitely. Blessings, Waylon. Right. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you so much.